Austin Romaine might be the best linebacker in college football, and no one's ready for what Kansas State's defense is about to do to the Big 12. Let's talk about it on Locked On Kansas State.
You are Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast on the Kansas State Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rauh, and thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen every single day. Welcome back to my everydayers. Joe Tillery joining me on the episode today. Going to talk about the Cats because it's all about the Cats on Locked On Kansas State. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when that first $5 bet wins. Joe, it's been a fun offseason so far for Kansas State, for yourself. I know you've had some big moves yourself, and it's just overall been a really exciting spring. We're heading into the summer. We're heading into fall camp. We're getting closer to fall camp and even closer to that week 0 game in Dublin. And you know, it's the easiest to talk about, and I'm guilty myself of talking about Avery Johnson, talking about this offense. It's the easiest narrative. It's the easiest talking points. But I think one of the most underappreciated part of Kansas State's roster this year is their defense, and especially that linebacking core, and especially Austin Romaine. We're going to break down why Austin Romaine is a future All-American, how deep this linebacker room really is, and why this defense could be the biggest threat in the Big 12 race. Joe, I got to ask you, though, Austin Romaine, I mean, just when you hear his name, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
He's a Kansas State guy. I mean, best way to say it possible. You think about the track record we've seen with guys that are unranked guys, 3-star guys, under-recruited, under-ranked guys that turn that leap and say, all right, out of nowhere, 2 years later, they're in NFL draft radars. It is such a textbook Kansas State thing to do, but Austin Romaine is a dude that just hit the ground running, got thrown to the fire early, but he has shown every step of the way loyalty to Kansas State, love for Kansas State, man, and it fires me up to think about his path already and what's in store for him ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly. He got thrown right in the fire as a true freshman. In 2023, he had to step in for Daniel Green, and that was a big deal. I remember that being a huge deal about how important it was going to be to replace him. And of course, it's really hard to replace a 5-year senior, but I think he did a really good job. I think he stepped up at a good point. And then last year was his coming out party, without question. You can talk about, the strip stack fumble against Tulane. There was a big play he made against Kansas as well. There was a lot of really just nice things from Romaine last year, excuse me. And it's not surprising that he's starting to get some love. I'm going to talk about what we've seen on social media as of lately, but it's not surprising. But then again, it should have happened a long time ago.
Yeah, I think you're right on with that. And I feel like as Kansas State fans, and you can say this for a lot of the Big 12, you don't see the narrative of, oh, this guy's the best in the country consistently. Like you get the few and far betweens here and there because there's some kid at Ohio State or some kid at Alabama that's the guy for that specific spot. Austin Romaine has really hit the ground running immediately and taken off. Like this is something that has been growing for a while. I do agree that it is a little bit surprising, not because of anything he's shown or whatever the case is, but a kid that truly was thrown to the wolves. I mean, early on, they needed him. They needed a true freshman kid to be your starting Mike. That is not easy for anybody. I don't care who you are, whether you're the top player in the country or you're a kid that nobody knows about. Like, there's a lot that goes into that. And the kid stepped in. I think he also understood the moment was like, I'm not here to be Daniel Green. I'm here to be myself, try to help the defense win games. And you saw some young guy mistakes here and there, but that propelled him so much further to where he's at now, where he needs to be successful for this defense to be successful because he's the guy that's running the show. I mean, this is your quarterback of the defense, and I think his upside is such a great thing to see for Kansas State. Also, just for Austin Romaine in general, like the kid was so under-recruited. I mean, you're thinking about Ivy League schools. You're thinking about, I think there was a Tulane interest, conveniently enough. You're thinking about a lot of that stuff, and then you get the offer from Kansas State, and you say, you know what, I'm going to take a chance. Let's go get this thing done. And it's just been an incredible story. Scouting, development, player, like him as a player and as a person. He's just an awesome dude and an awesome representative of Kansas State football in the national media.
We keep hearing about players when they come to Kansas State about being gritty, right? And that's kind of like the mold, and that's kind of like the idea that you want to hear about a player. I remember Jacob Parrish, obviously that's a story about grit coming from being a guy that's a walk-on to a third-round NFL draft pick. You got Marcus Siegel last year, 5th-round draft pick. If you had to make a guess right now, because PFF is Pro Football Focus is giving him a 91.0 grade from last season. It was the best in the Power 4. I think that's why we're starting to get some ideas of like, hey, this guy is on the radar to not just us in Kansas State, not even just the Big 12, but the entire country. And the NFL scouts are, I'm sure, paying attention. We hear Coach Kleinerman saying, I knew that early he was going to be special. Coach Denard says he's got the ear of everyone on the defense, which is perfect because you said he's the quarterback of the defense. I love that, by the way. I wanted to make sure we said that twice. Do you see him beating out Parrish, possibly being more than a 3rd-round pick? Could you see him going maybe top 50 next year?
I actually could. I mean, it is going to depend what happens this season. Because if he takes a step back or anything like that, people are going to look at the story a lot differently than if he stays where he's at, if he develops and continues to go forward. But that's to be said for everybody. I honestly have him right now as a late second, early third, where he's in that Parrish range. But the thing that you see with Kansas State athletes consistently across the board, anybody on the team, you've seen it time and time again. DJ Giddens, Jacob Parrish, good examples. They get to the combine, and because of the staff that Chris Kleiman's built, they have such a great foundation when it comes to the track events, when it comes to drills, when it comes to this and that. And you don't need to see this, but like you see kids have this meteoric rise of, man, this kid Jacob Parrish, we had him as a 6th-round pick. Now he's jumping all the way into 2nd and 3rd-round competitions. He's incredible, like testing numbers off the chart. Every single time one of these K-State kids get there. Same thing happened with Marquise Siegel. Same things happened, Ben Sinnott dominated the combine last year. You see these guys get to show what they're made of on a national media scale, and you see, okay, whatever they're doing at Kansas State, whatever's in the water over there, they're doing things the right way. Austin Romaine is already at where he's at without that meteoric rise in terms of these athleticism numbers that are going to blow everybody away. Like, he's at this on his own by his own merit with the work of Kansas State and the coaching staff. I feel like when it's all said and done, and I know it's tough, like early round linebackers, it's kind of the running back of the defense a little bit where it has become devalued because edge rushers are so dominant. You need DBs, you need everybody. A good middle linebacker is key, but I understand right now that I think the kid's sitting about a 2nd-round grade. If he takes another step forward, you might see that conversation change, but he's in line to be 1st, 2nd, 3rd guy off the board at that position group, in my opinion.
National respect, top 4 linebacker overall in college football by Pro Football Focus PFF, no matter what grade you look at, ahead of multiple 5-stars, which that's just on brand for Kansas State. You don't have to chase those 5 stars. They get the right fit. They build the right players. They develop. We're seeing that with the last couple of recruiting classes as well. His leadership, during spring ball while recovering, we saw some quotes out there that said you don't have to coach as much when he's out there. So, there's a lot of really good things coming from Austin Romaine. I don't think it would be a crazy thing to say that Austin Romaine will finish in 2025 as a unanimous first-team All-American. What about you?
I don't think it's crazy. I mean, there is some politics in that. There is some what's going to happen. There's speculation involved in all that. But Kansas State's had a couple of these guys the last couple of years. Felix was a good example. Big 12 defensive lineman of the year, or Big 12 lineman of the year, coming into his junior season, then does what he does. Incredible career. These guys always have the opportunity. It feels like Kansas State has a couple of these like cornerstone pillar type guys. And Austin Romaine's right there. I mean, Deuce Vaughn, similar situation, where they step on the field, okay, we have to game plan for this guy. I know it's usually the defense the other way around, but you have to game plan for Austin Romaine. You have to understand how he's going to play you downhill. You also can't be like, you can't sleep on his athleticism or anything like that. But you look at him, the PFF grades are one thing. I know some people reach, with those numbers and kind of get is that going to be, conducive to what he's going to do this season? Some people have optimism or pessimism in that front. I think it's valid. I mean, the kid understands his assignments. He knows where he's going. But the thing with that is like he steps on the field with the ceiling, the realistic ceiling of I could be the best linebacker in college football. Not a question. Like that's not a could it happen. Austin Romaine has that ability right now, and that's the beautiful thing. But the beautiful thing beyond that is that his floor is so high. Like if Austin Romaine takes a step back, he's still a top 5 linebacker in the Big 12 at his position. Like that's the beauty. The guy's worked his way to where he's at, and the next step ahead of him could be beautiful for Kansas State, for Joe Tillery, for the whole defense. It's something to behold for sure.
I love it. Austin Romaine, is he already the best linebacker in the country? Let me know in the comment description below. I want to hear it. If you have some people that you think could fight for, maybe your top 5, let us know in the comments. Let's talk about this entire linebacking group as a core, because I think it is really special coming into 2025. We'll continue this conversation right here on Locked On Kansas State. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments, whether it's game-winning shots or a breakout player like Halliburton or SGA in these finals. There's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game. Before tip-off, live, you name it, with player props, performance trends, and my personal favorite, those same-game parlays. Fans have way more ways to play smart and win big. I am huge on this SGA points right now, and it's proven why. I mean, he's just been insane this entire playoffs. How can you not want to continue to ride SGA during these playoffs? So that's who I'm picking with these. And FanDuel, with the amazing interface they have, that's what I'm going with for the rest of the NBA Finals. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it hits, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. So make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by July 4th. We're very close. I think last time I checked, we're at 936. So thank you so much for becoming an everydayer, your team every day. Flashback to 2023, Joe. Got Joe Tillery on the show today. Locked On Kansas State. Joe Tillery. Find him on YouTube at Joe Tillery. Always talk about the Cats. This dude's dedicated. Gets tattoos on his legs. He's so dedicated of Kansas State. But flashback to 2023. There was a depth crisis, of course. We talked about the injuries of Daniel Green. Bo Palmer forced Romaine into action as a true freshman as well. There was just a lot of issues in 2023 after winning the Big 12 championship in 2022. Now, fast forward to this year, with the momentum being super high with a recruiting class of 2025 that could arguably be the best recruiting class that at least Chris Klieman's ever seen. And the transfer portal, I think the momentum continued super strong, even with the spring portal. I was surprised how great the spring portal was. Now, Kansas State arguably has the best linebacking depth under Chris Klieman. What do you think about this linebacking group as a core? I know you have some thoughts about some of the people that came in the portal. I know you have some actual interviews from some of the players in the portal on your channel, but overall, what would you take from this linebacking core heading into the new year?
I think they have every bit the possibility to be the best positional group at Kansas State this season. Like
Ooh,
their depth is
love it.
there, their top end is there, their talent is there, and they're just team first guys in that unit. Like you don't have somebody where it's all right, our Daniel Green's here, then where's the next guy beyond him? Like you have multiple guys that can step in and play 80% of the snaps at a high level and not have a huge drop off if one guy steps out. If this guy, God forbid an injury happens, but that linebacker position has been really banged up the last couple seasons. You've seen that happen. I mean, that's how Austin Romaine gets on the field as early as he does. And you never wish that, you never hope it happens, but it feels like this group right now is equipped for that moment if that happens this season or whatever happens. If someone takes a step back, this guy's exploding, we didn't anticipate this thing happens. It feels like their realistic like output this season is the best unit on Kansas State as a positional group and the best, I mean, a top 5 unit in the country in my mind. Like they absolutely have that upside.
Well, PFF, using Pro Football Focus yet again, just came out with an article just this weekend saying that Kansas State, they believe it has the number 10 linebacking room in the country. I'm with you. I think it's a lot higher than 10. I think it's, more towards the top 5, but SEC Big Ten bias, don't get me started on that thing. But when you come to it, the first unit, obviously Romaine's going to be on there. I think there's going to be an interesting conversation of it's either Desmond Purnell or if it's Gabe Powers that's going to be with that first unit. I think no matter what, whoever is that second guy on the first unit and the first guy on the second unit is super exciting. Obviously, Purnell had 30 pressures last year. He's very good at the blitz. But Gabe Powers, and you've had an interview on your channel as well with him, coming over from Ohio State, he seems like a special player.
He really does, man. I've really enjoyed the conversations I've had with him. Great family, great parents. I've talked to some of his folks over there a little bit here and there. But with Gabe, he brings you something that you haven't had. And that's not a shot at Austin Romaine. It's not a shot at Des Purnell, but he has size, that speed. Like he is deceptively quick to the point where he might be the best athlete in that entire position group. And I feel like I understand that there's a lot of injuries that happen to the linebacker spot. There's going to be a couple of different spots here and there that are open for grabs. The way I look at this top 3, I don't see, I mean, obviously Austin Romaine, we're raving about Austin Romaine. I don't see one of these 3 guys playing 15 snaps a game while the other 2 play 80. You know what I mean? I feel like it's going to be a fairly even split because you need depth at that spot. You can't have like what happened last year with Austin Moore. The guy was out there every single defensive snap, and you saw later in games when you have to stop the run, you have to do different things like that across the field, you're gas. I mean, you can't play every defensive snap. there's a little bit of that conversation where it's, okay, how does Des Purnell fit here? How does Austin Romaine fit here? How does Gabe Powers jump in here? I don't know that I look at it as much of a, these two are the cut and dry favorites. This guy's here, this guy's here. There's a lot of versatility in that group, but you got to admit with Gabe Powers, like his ability has been something that Kansas State hasn't had the last couple seasons. A dude that's 6'4", stupid athletic, played running back in high school as well, which is kind of hilarious. But then you look at a guy like Des Purnell as well. He also has some speed and athleticism, but the size is a little bit limited. Came to college as a safety, but he has done such great things with that playbook and playing downhill. Last season did kind of tail off a little bit throughout the season. Started really, really hot, looked really, really good, and then had a couple of mistakes here and there. That's going to happen as the season wears on. But I think Kansas State fans as a whole are incredibly lucky to have that trio at face value of, okay, these guys are ready to go. And then even behind them, you've got a couple guys that can jump out there and play some minutes. But I'm pretty excited for Gabe Powers. I think he's got a really high floor and something that will help both Des Purnell and Austin Romaine take a step forward as well.
Yeah, and I don't want to take away from Purnell, and I'm not saying that he deserves or doesn't deserve to be in the starting lineup because he was fantastic last year, even with some of the issues towards the end of the season. 30 pressures last year, as I mentioned, was fifth among all FBS linebackers in the country. And Gabe Powers, there's a lot of excitement to him. Top 10 linebacking recruit back in 2022, but he's only played 50 college snaps with Ohio State. So there's a lot of upside, we think, but there's still that question mark of can he actually perform at that level? I think we can. I think you and I both believe that as well. And I think the coaches also believe that. What do you think about this? With this versatility of these three linebackers, do you think we're going to be more of a 4-2-5 type of defense, or can you see maybe that 3-3-5 front kind of come in more to play?
It's a great question because I think there's been conversations of which is going to be the predominant defensive alignment. I think there's been more conversation about 4-2-5, or sorry, two linebackers out there. I don't know why I'm blanking. 4-2-5, right? Am I crazy?
Yeah.
4-2? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I'm blanking on that for a minute. There's been more conversation about the 4-2-5 and 3-3-5. And I don't think it's going to be 1A, 1B where we see 80% of the snaps to this, 20% here. I feel like it's going to be an even split, but it's going to depend on who you're playing. Like thinking about the three linebacker alignment. When you play a team in the non-con that runs the wishbone offense, like you got the triple option here, you're going to need 50 dudes at the linebacker position. 3 isn't going to be enough. I think it's going to be a lot because I think Joe Tillery understands like there's going to be the right opportunity for the right defensive alignment. I would assume they start out in 4-2-5 and then go from there. But as this thing goes on, like I think the non-con will be big for 4-2-5. When you get to Big 12 play, and I know that there's been issues with 3-3-5 the last couple of years, you're going to need dudes that are going downhill and downhill quick because there's so many talented backs every single season in the Big 12, and Kansas State has the opportunity to shut some of those offensives down. But there's going to be times for that 4-2-5 as well.
Gabe Powers is this fair to say, he could become the most impactful defensive transfer in the Big 12 this year?
In the Big 12, I like that. I don't know that you can't say no. I agree. I think they absolutely has that opportunity. I think there's probably other guys like Texas Tech has some dogs that transferred in. And so it's not to take a shot at them. It's not to take a shot at Gabe. But I think when you look at this, Kansas State has some as well. Like, I really like the kid from Arizona, Gunnar Maldonado. And I know he's coming off the injury. We've talked about the safety room as well. Marquavius Moss, there's some guys in that spot. As well as at the secondary for Kansas State is going to be interesting this season because there's a ton of talent there. With K-State, you see it at the pass rushers. There's going to be dudes cycling in and out. The beautiful thing is that everybody on this team has the opportunity to take one of those starting jobs and run with it and say, okay, season's end, this is a first-team All-Big 12 caliber player, and he hadn't played much at his previous school, or he's done this at his previous school. He's transferring up. I feel like there's a good shot that Powers has that chance, but I think it's just as good a chance of like Morgan Fortenberry, or guys like Quay Moss in the secondary as well.
I love it. This linebacking core gets me excited. Romaine isn't just a star, in my opinion. I think he's a tone setter for the entire defense. I'm excited to see what this Kansas State defense can do week 0. Cannot wait for Dublin. But here's my question, because it seems like we're not talking about them enough. And again, I am guilty of this as well, bringing a show every single day, and I hardly talk about the defense. Do you think it's an underrated unit because, and this is just not just nationally, but everywhere, because the Avery Johnson hype is stealing the spotlight, or do you think it's something else?
I'll push back and say this. I don't think they're underrated. I mean, they're probably going to be underrated when the season starts, when it's all said and done. I think it's a prove-it defense right now is what it is. I think you need to see it a little bit to see how these pieces come together because there's a ton of talent on paper. Joe Tillery always gets it right. Always trust Joe Tillery. I have no doubt about that. But the national media is going to look at Kansas State and say, why should you be better than Iowa State? Why should you be better than Texas Tech? Why should you be better there on the defensive side of the ball? Just because there isn't at face value beyond Austin Romaine, there isn't an Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards type situation on the other side of the field that everybody in the country knows. Like you could be going to Wisconsin and say, okay, like Des Purnell's a stud. You don't have that consistently on Kansas State's defense right now. I wouldn't say they're necessarily underrated as of right now because I think that people understand they're going to be a top 5 unit. That's just Chris Klieman football. And if Kansas State's to get to that 10-2 spot, they're going to be a top 3 unit in my opinion. But the way I see it is it's a prove it defense, see who steps up, and then go from there.
I love it. And if you're betting on Avery Johnson and this offense to explode, I think you also better bet on this linebacking core, especially the shutdown teams. And I think Austin Romaine's going to keep extending. And if he keeps extending, not only just the Big 12 in trouble, I think you're talking college football playoff potential for sure. I want to talk Avery Johnson. Though it's been a while since you and I have had a conversation. Let's get a quick little talk about the offense, and maybe I'll steal a way too early prediction from you for Dublin and maybe even farther. We'll do that to finish out the show right here on Locked On Kansas State. Christian Rauh joined by Joe Tillery here on Locked On Kansas State, your team every day. Welcome back into the show. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. Get into that 1,000 subscribers by Independence Day. Come on, make those fireworks like purple and white. Let's make that happen. We'd love to see that happen. Joe, we've talked to linebacker core here. I'm really excited for this defense. I love the little tidbits you put in towards the secondary because I remember having that conversation a few weeks ago as well. You know, one of these days we got to dig into the trenches because I think this front seven is actually really impressive as well. Bringing back some of those players on waivers, you name it. But I want to finish this show. I do want to switch over to the offensive side and just kind of talk a little Avery Johnson. He was just invited to the Manning camp. There's some talks about him being one of the top 2026 NFL draft prospects. There's a lot of things hanging in the balance for Avery Johnson this year. And I hope for the record that he is not entering the 2026 draft. I would like to see him stick around for 2 seasons. However, there's a caveat to that. That means if he's entering the draft in 2026, that means he absolutely balled out in 2025. What are you feeling about after spring now? Because I don't think we've talked since spring practice ended. What do you feel about this offensive core and these wide receivers, this tight end, Dylan Edwards, and the rest of this amazing stacked running back group to complement Avery Johnson this year?
Well, it feels like it keeps getting better. I don't know that anything's changed, but for whatever reason, it feels like the stock keeps getting higher and higher in my mind. And there's the realistic aspect of this. Avery Johnson is absolutely like the most hyped prospect we've seen in a long, long time in Manhattan. That said, he's deserving of that hype. Like, you don't go to the Manning Passing Academy without being that dude. You don't have some of the things he has without being that dude. You don't have, the lavender car. Obviously, now it's a new one. Shout out Long MacArthur, I think, maybe.
I think yes, yeah.
I hope so. If not, I'm just butchering dealerships here and there. But the offense as a whole continues to get better. I got to tell you, the dude I'm most excited about, I think Dylan Edwards is going to be in for a huge year. I think Matt Wells is at the center of it all. Avery's got 3 different offensive coordinators every season. This one doesn't feel like that different considering you had him as QB coach right there, and that's his guy. Like, not saying that Connor Riley wasn't, but you understand that this transition isn't the same that it was going from a Cullen Klein to a Connor Riley as a first-year play caller. There's a little bit element of familiarity between those two that I think is going to take this team far. But, man, you look around at the weapons. I have heard nothing but great things about Tibbs. I've heard great things about Bradley. And I know that everybody watching this likely is saying, well, you heard it last season with Keegan Johnson. That didn't work out. You heard it with this guy. Trey Spivey obviously was talented and limited action. But the upside is always tough to project with receivers. But I feel like the talent around Avery, like, people are starting to realize it. People are starting to see it. And he doesn't have to be a Superman. That's the key. He doesn't have to be the perfect guy all the time. He can make mistakes here and there. But from everything I've heard, from all I've seen this offseason so far, I am really, really taken back by the offense. I think it's a really, really good spot, and I'm excited to see its impact this season.
Yeah, I would not be shocked if we see just amazing leadership from Avery Johnson right away. I mean, just what we've heard, the small bits that we've heard from him this offseason so far, I feel like he's just ready to ball. I feel like that's what I'm getting from him. I'm excited to see what we get from him next month at Big 12 Media Days, because I'm sure he's going to be there as well. There's a lot of really big things that I'm excited for with this offense. Dylan Edwards, I think, is going to be an X factor. But I love the entire running back room as well. You talk Joe Jackson. Antonio Martin might be like one of those like amazing pieces as well. Late spring transfer a big guy, and looking to talk about the goal line stance. I think Kansas State is going to be super dangerous if you get inside that red zone this year. They already were amazing as with the tight end group last year, leading in red zone touchdowns. Now you're bringing in 6'4", 6'5" receivers and Bradley and Tibbs and a big guy like Antonio Martin, who probably will get those short yardage situations. Avery Johnson is good. I think he's got maybe his best offensive roster around him heading into the new year. Is that safe to say?
I think it's a fair assessment. I think last year, even though Avery was the guy, we gave him the keys to the Lambo. He's got to drive the offense. There's some young guy mistakes in there. Avery wouldn't run from that. I don't think the coaching staff would either. I think people understand there were those lapses. It also didn't help the talent that was around him consistently. Not to bury guys here and there, but there was virtually, outside of Jace Brown, I should say, no production from the receiver group. Like there wasn't a dude saying, all right, I'll help you out here, Avery. I see you're scrambling for your life. Let me get open here. There wasn't that consistently. You got flashes here and there, but there wasn't that. From everything I've heard, from everything I believe to be true, these top two receivers, in my mind, being outside of Jace Brown, I should say, in Jaron Bradley and Ron Tibbs, I think they're going to be really, really good as a duo. And then you have Jace Brown, who's taken another step forward, like a guy that's going to find himself already on NFL draft radars as a sneaky guy that could go in 26 if he has a big year. There's going to be some pieces around him. And I think Lincoln Cure, it's tough to project because he got there recently. He's only been there a week or so. Wanted to finish up the basketball side of things, the track side of things. Won't blame the kid whatsoever for that. There's guys that love football, and you can feel it come through in interviews. You can feel it the way he talks about the game. This kid is going to be in Avery Johnson's ear constantly. Hey, let's go throw. We got to go do this. We got to do this. And I don't feel like there's going to be much of a misstep from his high school career to college. He's not going to have the same impact immediately. That's just the way it goes in college football. But he's going to be on the field. He's going to see some snaps, and he's going to be a big factor in that goal line package.
I love it. Yeah, I can't wait to see it. Just seeing his recent highlights from his track winning state championship, saying he put on some good football weight. That was something I was concerned about. Maybe potentially being a wide receiver because him running in track. And it looks like it's happened the complete opposite. That good football weight might actually make him be able to be productive a lot sooner than we anticipated, which is just that much more exciting. If I had to throw you on the spot right away, I won't ask you for an exact prediction because we're in June. Leave that to me to make these egregious predictions way too early. But how about a floor and a ceiling for Kansas State in 2025?
Well, I've been doing some more thinking. I think everybody knows this. That game in Ireland, I'm not saying it's the immediate thing, like you will lose everything if you lose. That game is your momentum. You win that game against Iowa State, you are cruising towards a Big 12 championship, towards a college football playoff win. Because if you beat Iowa State, you're beating one of the best teams in the league. Anybody in this league can beat anybody. But the more I think about it, I feel like when we get Iowa State earlier in the season, you've seen some lapses by them in the non-con schedule, lost to a MAC team a couple years ago, and there's some of those issues with Matt Campbell's team where they're just not quite as ready out of the gates. That's not to throw them under the bus. They're a dang good team. They will be good again this year. Love Rocco Becht. I feel almost better that we're getting him early in the season than I do late in November or September or whatever time, October. It feels like we're getting them out of the way early, which I feel like is a good thing for this team. I sit there and look at this. The ceiling is perfect. Like you can go perfect up to the college football playoffs, see what happens there. My realistic projection, and I'll give you a floor and ceiling here in a second. I feel good about saying 10-2 or even 11-1. I mean, I don't think you lose to Iowa State, but you find two other losses on the schedule. It's tough to justify some of these games, but you got to deal with you going to Utah. I think K-State wins that game. I know a lot of people are weary of that. You got to deal with going to Stillwater. We're cursed in Stillwater. It is what it is. I feel good about my prediction being 10-2-ish. I'm going to say the ish there. I think the floor, it's a 4-loss team. I think you can always find 4 losses in the Big 12. That's just the way this thing goes. The ceiling is perfect. The ceiling is a perfect season heading towards a college football playoff with a Big 12 championship berth. We'll see what happens in the postseason.
I don't hate it, and I don't disagree whatsoever. Joe, what you got coming up as of late? I know you got a great YouTube channel. You're starting a gaming channel as well. New stuff coming up around here for you.
We'll see, man. I've been kind of kicking myself a little bit, moving through the process. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, just moved back to Kansas, which is awesome. But I've been parlaying the idea of having boxes to unpack with the idea of being lazy. Hasn't really helped the production in terms of the YouTube channel, but I'm hoping to have a new announcement here in a couple of days about the YouTube channel. Potentially a new show, some stuff coming out. We'll see, if I can stick to that and get on it. So for those of you that have checked me out on the channel, I apologize for not hitting more content, but just good things, man. I'm ready to talk about the Cats. We're in that point, and you know this as well as anybody making daily videos. We're in the point of the offseason where it separates the boys from the men, where you got to get stuff out that maybe there's not a lot to talk about. Maybe there's not this. The excitement about Kansas State is always there, and that gets us all through the offseason. But we're in that spot where it starts to humble you if you don't get on top of things.
I'll be completely honest with you. I've done this in the past for other teams working for different, mediums. This has been the easiest offseason for me because there's so much narrative around Kansas State, and I can't believe how high this momentum is, but I absolutely agree with you. This is the toughest part of the season. It gets only easier from here, especially when Big 12 media days are just less than a month away. Joe, thanks so much for joining. We got lots to talk about. Search Joe Tillery on YouTube if you're listening, or if you want to check out on YouTube, you can click that episode description in the bio. We got plenty more to talk about this week. We'll be back here more right here. Please like the video. Please subscribe. And this has been Locked On Kansas State.